You've heard a lot about the Hummer EV over the past year. You know it has 1,000 horsepower, that it can crab walk diagonally, and that it can go 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds using watch to freedom mode. But what you haven't heard is what is it actually like to drive. I'm Zane from GM-Trucks.com, and I just got back from Milford, Michigan at GM's Milford Proving Grounds, where I was among the first people in the entire world to drive the 2022 GMC Hummer EV. The video you're about to watch was shot by General Motors and provided to me after the fact. You see, I was not allowed to bring any camera equipment on Milford Proving Grounds property, lest I accidentally film a future product that they don't want anybody to see yet. Prototypes were running around everywhere around us, and GM wants to keep some of those details and vehicles secret for the future, so I really don't blame them. We're going to start off with an action reel to give you an idea of where we are and what we're doing. Then we're going to transition into a 20-minute drive with Jim Green, a vehicle dynamics engineer for General Motors and Hummer EV, and then finish up that video with me talking back here and giving you my driving impressions about what you can expect if you've got one of these vehicles on order. And let me tell you, you're not going to want to miss what I have to say. So without further ado, let's travel over to Milford, Michigan and get behind the wheel of the all-new GMC Hummer EV electric super truck. And here we are at General Motors Milford Proving Grounds. We're about to take the all-new Hummer EV, the 1,000 horsepower super truck, for its very first spin by non-GM employees. And I am so honored to be one of those people, and I've been looking forward to this for well over a year now. So I just got to tell you, why waste time? Let's get behind the wheel and see how it does.
So here we're going to have kind of stop by the cones, and once we're clear, if you want to go ahead, you can do an acceleration, just give you a taste of what the truck feels like in the gravel, and be prepared, you might get a little bit of motion out of it, so kind of be ready to compensate. And once you get to the other cones there, we'll just kind of go to coast and slow back down for the corner coming up.
Okay, ready whenever?
You're good to go. It gets better, trust me.
Oh, I know. Wow. The just to feel the mass of the vehicle take off like that and grip was really impressive.
Yeah, the motors. I'm more traditional off-road kind of background, and I love a V8 and a 4-to-1 T-case, right? But the motors have won me over. They're pretty incredible what they can do.
Yeah, that doesn't leave me wanting for a gas engine whatsoever.
It has the opposite effect of when I go back to my Silverado. It's a 2019. It's a nice truck. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
But the latency, like the hesitation you get in the transmission, where it's got to think about what it needs to do, and there's parts moving. This truck has none of that.
Just goes.
Yeah, this is drivability wise. I think that's going to win customers over big time.
So by default, is the four-wheel steering always active and adjusting kind of?
It is, yeah. Okay. So lower speeds, you'll actually turn where the front wheels and the rear are out of phase. That helps you get a tighter turn radius, more maneuverability. As you get up to highway speeds, though, as your front tires turn, your rears will actually turn in phase. And that's, I believe it's right around 25 to 30 miles an hour where that transition happens. And that's completely automated. At higher speeds, we do use the active rear steer to help stabilize the vehicle. It actually is tied into the brake control system.
Okay.
So it's kind of part of the stability control system. But I think the key benefit is a vehicle this size, you'll see the maneuverability gain you get with rear steer is pretty phenomenal. It makes the truck very nimble, makes it super maneuverable. You can get it into things off-road that you really shouldn't be able to get into, which is good and bad.
I've had some people ask me if the overall weight of the vehicle, I know it's going to be like over 9,000 pounds, is that going to affect its ability to go off? Like, how is that weight and being off-road like work together?
So, depending on what surfaces you're on, like obviously, like you can't take a heavy-duty truck in the sand and expect it to be perfect. This truck actually does incredibly well in the sand. So I don't think there's a trade-off in that respect. If you're talking about like Moab and things like that, again, on the rocks, I don't think it's a big trade-off. There's more than enough power to compensate for the mass of the vehicle. But in reality I don't think it's that different than, like a HD pickup truck, to be honest. So for me personally, I haven't seen a big trade-off because of the mass necessarily, just because the system is designed around the mass of the vehicle. We're going to do a little bit of a camera demo here. You've probably done a bit of off-roading, and one of the classic things as you come up to a crest of a hill, right? All you see is sky.
Yep.
And this is where the cameras are something again that I didn't think in my head initially. I thought it was kind of a gimmick, but in reality the cameras are a pretty nice feature off-road, and kind of show you some of the views.
Okay. Yeah, how many cameras, just for my audience, how many cameras are on this particular vehicle?
I'm trying to recall, was it 8?
I think it's way more than that. Let me
Or
actually
is it
find it out for you right
18?
now. I believe it's 18.
Oh, wow.
Now that you said it, now I'm like, I think it is 18 with all the entire.
I think
Ultra
18 is the
underbody.
correct number.
Yep,
18 different views that you can look at.
that's correct.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So people should be able to see anywhere, any situation they're in, they're going to have a good view to get a handle on it.
100%.
So there's a number of options. So each of these are kind of different controls.
I'm looking at the underside of the
Right.
vehicle
Yeah,
right
so
now. That's great.
18 is the number. So we've got 18 different.
So actually, let's go ahead. I'm gonna have you put the nose right at the top of the hill,
Okay.
and basically kind of like the point where you're about to go over, but you can't tell. So if you stop right here, so the beautiful thing about this, right, is if you've got rocks, you can look at your front tires or your rears, so you can kind of self-spot yourself here. You can do a split screen, so you can see the top down and the front and rear simultaneously. My daughters hate this. They get car sick. You can have a front view where you're actually looking at the hill here, or rear if you've got it back down.
Oh, okay.
You can do these kind of top down, which are more valuable like if you're in like a rock field or something and you're kind of crawling through. Or you can do these other kind of hybrid views where you just need a different angle to see what you're about to climb. I find the most usable, if you're in the technical stuff, these help. But typically what I'm doing is like these guys right here. So like the first ride trip we did in Moab, Al Oppenheiser rode with me quite a bit. Al used this view all day. I didn't even get out of the truck to spot him. I would just like show him the line, because you can do this.
And now you've got the guidelines on in front of you. You know where you're going to end up and what you're
Yeah.
going to hit and what you're not going to hit.
And even when we do have spotters, so some of the guys we worked with are very experienced off-roaders, and so they'll help kind of spot the larger team. A lot of times you find out you're watching them on the camera because you get a better high-def view because they're obscured by the hood.
Yeah.
And when you mess up, they don't look as mad or disappointed. But yeah, if you want to go ahead, one little trick if you want to play on the downside, if you want to let the vehicle coast once we go over, and then you can use the paddle to kind of help brake. So just kind of push and hold. Yep. And that regen paddle, it'll work going downhill, it'll work on the level, and it just gives you like a bit of an elevated boost.
Okay.
And it's dependent on speed,
Okay.
so it'll kind of fade in as it stops.
And this little display is showing me not only how much wattage or kilowatts I'm getting back from the vehicle on regenerative, but when I press the accelerator pedal,
Yep.
it's showing me how much is going out to the
Yeah,
wheels.
so it's a real time, either what you're expending or what you're regenning back. You know, it's all power level.
It's the equivalent to like a fuel economy gauge almost.
Like
in a
maybe
way?
an instantaneous.
Instantaneous.
In that respect, but this is a direct. You know, this is what's going out of the battery. So you know, horsepower, kilowatts. You know, so kilowatts that's your power basically.
Right.
You know, so if you're sitting there in park with your laptop plugged in, it'll show like a 1 kilowatt value.
Okay.
To let you know that you're burning energy. So you'll see the trucks kind of interesting to watch. They're doing a little bit of a steering demo. So if you want to kind of bear to the right, and you'll see the cones there, the pointer cones.
So we got something knocked out.
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna have you go right between these two guys over here. And if you put about your driver's door just past those, and a little bit more would be good. That's perfect. So if you want to just go ahead, do a full lock turn to the left, so just kind of steer all the way to the left. Just give you an idea of what sort of turn radius you have for parking, maneuverability.
It's really interesting because you can feel it's a very different feeling from a normal vehicle that only turns with the front wheels.
Absolutely. And when we go to terrain mode a little bit later, there's actually a gain where we bump up that ratio.
Okay.
It won't help you as far as the full turn circle, but as far as maneuverability, it gains it up and it helps the truck really follow your steer inputs.
Cool.
And here, for the first portion, I'm just going to have you basically do the slalom. And this is a fairly tight cone course, so just kind of drive through it, you know, fairly slow, but gives you an idea of how tightly you can wind around through a trail.
Incredible agility for what the size of this vehicle is.
Yeah, if you had a long wheelbase pickup truck, this would be very difficult or impossible to get through, especially without really thinking about it.
Man, you know, looking at that course, I'm like, there's no way I can turn through it. And then I'm cutting those cones even shorter than it
Yeah.
seemed like you would.
Yeah, you've got room to spare, basically.
Very cool.
So, in addition to the modes, you know, we've got additional controls here for raising and lowering the vehicle or steering. So we're going to go into crab mode. So if you want to do a push and hold, we kind of wait for it here. So we actually have you do a push and hold, and you'll see that little timer. Okay, so now we'll do push and hold again. So this is how you engage crab mode. It's something you have to do when you're at basically stop. Oh, we actually turned it back up.
But it was so much fun to push the button.
Oh.
Kind of gets you ready to go, like
Right.
feel like you're doing something.
And it's kind of a nice little safety feature where it very deliberate, so the driver can't accidentally engage this. So you've got to be stopped. But you'll see now there's a little crab icon.
Okay.
And basically what this does is now you're in crab walk. And so at lower speeds, basically below 20 miles per hour, gives you the full effect. As you accelerate up, it'll actually fade back to normal and turn
Okay.
itself back off. So you can't drive down the highway with it. But if you want to go ahead and kind of feel, you know, the first, say 100 degrees of steering input will give you more lateral. If you go full lock, the front tires will still keep turning, so they will overcome the rears.
But
But
still,
within
wow,
that-
that's so weird.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird seeing the horizon move in that way.
Yeah, like this, you're like drifting over. Oh man, I'm gonna show my friends this so much.
Yeah. So like Aaron said, it's kind of a cool little party trick feature, but there's definitely times where it gives you an option to take a line off-road that doesn't exist for other trucks. You know, so it's not something I'd see you using every 2 minutes, but you get into like a trail in Moab, like Poison Spider, you get a bad bounce. This kind of helps you save yourself.
Yeah, if you get stuck up against a tree and you don't want to turn out of it, you can kind of horizontally shift your way out of it instead.
I have a dent in one of my development vehicles. That was because we didn't crab mode out of a spot we should have. Yeah, so to disable crab mode, you got to come back to a stop here. So you could actually just accelerate away, and it'll eventually, time itself back out.
Mhm.
Or if I do a single push, we'll go back to auto steering. If you chose that, maybe you wanted to back the vehicle up, you could actually turn rear steer off just to help make it,
Okay.
maneuver a little more traditionally. But normally it's going to operate in auto.
So just pushing the button will either disable it or go to auto, but
Correct.
holding it will bring it to crab walk
Correct.
mode.
Yep.
Okay.
The rear wheels have up to a 10-degree steering angle input, so the road wheel angle will actually go to 10 degrees. And you'll see the indicator on the dash. The fronts can achieve about 45, which is fairly typical for a truck.
Okay. Is there any way to disable the engine sound completely, or is it just
Absolutely.
different?
So if we go to rear moding up here.
Am I going straight still? Or?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Keep bearing straight, and you'll see the rocks. That's
I
where
got
we're
it.
head here. Yeah, and actually, I'll correct that. It doesn't disable. It'll let you customize
You can
that
change
if
it.
you wanted
Okay.
to.
You can
Yeah.
lower it between different things, but per regulations, you do have to have some type of
Now, is that on the outside as well, or just on the inside?
Sure. And when we come up to a stop here, if you put your window down, there's like a droning noise that's kind of subtle.
So I'm kind of probably hearing a combination of maybe what's coming from the outside and, or is some piped in through the speakers on the inside, or is it just?
So you can hear that.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's the pedestrian noise.
Mhm.
That's like a mandated noise, and you'll
Of course.
hear there's all kinds of like Jetson car noises and
Yeah.
stuff. We had one that sounded like angels at one point. People looked at that one really funny. So what we're going to do is actually, I'll have you rotate the knob to the right. We're going to go to terrain mode. There we go. So keep going. It's this guy right here. This disables stability control, so it brings up a little driver prompt. If you don't select that, you won't get the full terrain mode. But once you go into terrain mode, you'll actually start to raise the vehicle. You'll see there's a little icon
Okay.
in the upper right that indicates the mode plus the state of the vehicle. You can always confirm that if you do a push on the up-down height controls.
Okay.
And that
And I can
shows you
feel it
the
kind
level.
of moving up.
And if you want, on your right-hand side, if you take that at 3 o'clock, if you kind of scroll up and down there, it's the toggle. There's actually a suspension height indicator. And these are all customizable, of course. This will let you see as the vehicle raises and lowers, but more importantly, when you're off-road, it gives you an indication of the rebound or jounce travel. That you're
Okay.
in.
Yeah, I'm seeing a display that shows me all the tires and their like heights and elevations to get a better view on where each tire is vertically.
And you'll see that it'll move in real time here for us. And we'll just kind of follow along. There's a gravel that they laid down.
Okay. Now that I'm in terrain mode, my throttle pedal is a little bit more sensitive, and it has changed just the overall demeanor of the vehicle quite a bit.
You can look at this as this is kind of, terrain mode has 2 levels. If you're in D or L, it gives you more of a 4-low effect in L, so like a
Okay.
4-to-1 key case. whereas a D is somewhere between 4 high and 4 low, so it'll give you some brake activation to help kind of slow the vehicle through motor and brake pressure. D is kind of more ideal for like this type of thing. L is more for if you are in real steep terrain or you've got sharp drop-offs where you want to have that extra assist so you don't slam the truck back down on the ground.
Right.
Kind of gives you that control and precision.
Cool.
So from here, we'll just kind of follow. The line I'd recommend is kind of bear to the left a bit,
Okay.
and you'll see there's rocks we can try to run up on that left side.
Another one of those situations, this hard left turn where the four-wheel steering has made a huge difference. Now we're going to go over a pile of rocks that I would never attempt in pretty much any other vehicle. But this thing just no problem at all.
So, you know, you do have 3 independent rear motors here, and what that does is allows us to control the torque a little more precisely on the rear. So, you know, the rear locker, the fact that we don't have a mechanical rear locker takes advantage of the fact that, you know, the motors are completely independent. I can put all of my torque on a single motor. I can have, you know, 5,000 newton meters of torque driving forward on one, and I could have 5,000 newton meters of torque driving backwards on the other if I wanted. It's really all in how we tune it and calibrate it.
Far better, more tunable than any mechanical or, you know,
Absolutely.
mechanical system you could ever devise.
Yeah, because in a traditional vehicle, you're tied to an engine and transmission. You cannot do, you know, those separate, totally independent torque controls like we have here, unless you throw a lot of weight in clutches, and even then, they're still not capable of the full range. It'll tell me to apply the brake. It's priming the system. I'm gonna wait for my little indicator here.
That was like a god came and kicked the back end of this thing.
It's pretty fun. And to think that you can literally take this truck down a class 4 off-road trail, like, you know, we've done Poison Spider, Steel Bender at Moab, drive right off the trail covered in mud, and go do that on road. I don't know 2 vehicles that can kind of have that dual capability.
Yeah, the range on this thing is incredible. Like the conditions, the roads, the things that this thing can do, and it's just amazing at everything. Whether you're on the road or off-road or going over boulders or, you know, showing off to your friends with the WTF mode. If you could see my face without this mask, my jaw would be like on the floor. It's incredible.
So one of the other things I love, and this is what really sells me, is like the day-to-day driving. When you're on the highway, you got just kind of the ability to pass and accelerate. You know, we're going 55 right here, and just how effortless merging onto expressway like that, goes 55 to 80 basically. It's just power right on demand at all times, no hesitation.
How much of the battery charge does like a typical Freedom run use up?
Very little. I mean, you're probably talking a percent or 2.
Okay.
So if you go out there and you do it repeatedly, then yeah, you start to pull the battery down. But you'll find driving, you know, day to day at highway speeds, things like that. It's not like it's 5-10% every time. It's nowhere near that.
Okay. So you could go and you could show some friends it a few times and not have to be worried about whether you can get home or not.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you could do dozens basically. I'm sure there's an actual limit to that, but one of those things.
Can you like overheat the motors or use it
So
too
no,
much?
they won't let you. Basically, they'll start to reduce your power to kind of manage thermal.
Okay.
So just like a normal engine would start to change how efficient it is and how it performs. This will do the same thing, but it's doing basically with controllers watching the temperature. It'll do certain things like cabin cooling. It'll start to reduce your cabin cooling to help keep the motors cool and the battery cool. Once it gets to even hotter temperatures, it'll actually start to reduce the torque available. And that all happens kind of in a very seamless way. So as it starts to creep up on you, you won't even know. It basically prolongs that system's capability. We're going 65 miles an hour. So that's my favorite mode. See why?
No wonder this thing has such massive tires. It's digging all day long.
Yeah, if you could see the amount of rocks that you throw with this 1,000 horsepower is very impressive. Yeah, we took the trucks to the Silver Lake Sand Dunes, and I don't think anyone's face stopped smiling the whole time we're there. I mean, the trucks can pretty much climb anything you point them at. Acceleration out in the sand, it's where the trucks just shine. Absolutely made for that.
Well, thank you so much for your time today.
It was my pleasure. It's something we've been working on for quite a while, so it's really exciting to be able to kind of demo it here.
Yeah, this is what an experience and what a truck. Well done.
No, thank you.
So, what'd you think? I got to admit, my time behind the wheel was really exciting. So here comes the time you've been waiting for. I'm going to share with you some of my notes, and I hope you'll forgive me, but I've written some of them down. There's so much I'd like to tell you, and I don't want to forget anything. So first off, I really enjoyed my time behind the wheel. I think you might know, but I have a edition 1 on order for myself, and this few hours behind the wheel that I did last week, it only has made me even more excited to take delivery of my Hummer EV in just a few months. But overall, it's a torque monster. Al Oppenheiser, the chief engineer of Hummer EV, let us know that at the motors, the 3 electric motors are putting out around 1,200 pound-feet of torque before gear reduction, which is absolutely insane. And you can feel it when you accelerate. It's kind of like heavy equipment in a way. The vehicle is like a tank, and those big meaty tires just start clawing away at the ground the instant you push down the accelerator pedal. And that leads me to my next point. All of the input on this thing is instant. Unlike a regular gas-powered vehicle where when you push your foot on the pedal, there's this movement, the gas needs to be fed to the engine needs to accelerate, the mechanical functions need to transfer through the transmission. In the Hummer EV, it is accelerator pedal and instant acceleration. Almost instantaneously, it's kind of satisfying. It's shocking, almost like using an RC electric car. You pull the trigger and it moves right away, and that's what it's like on the Hummer EV. Off-road, the 13.5 inches of suspension travel is impressive. You soak up every bump and rut like it's not even there. We drove on a road course that GM didn't include when they provided us with our footage, and we went over simulated railroad crossings at highway speeds between 65 and 75 miles an hour. And the Hummer was like, what? I didn't feel anything. It just glided over them, and the suspension just soaked up those railroad crossings like they weren't even there. It was really, really impressive. When it came to crawling over the boulders, it just climbed right over them. I mean, it was really a non-event. I wish I could tell you about how crazy it was or how it was challenging, But the combination of the four-wheel steer and the huge suspension travel, literally, and just all the torque vectoring that it can do between all the different wheels and the locked rear axles, it just climbed over and went over it like nobody's business. No drama, no mess, no fuss, no nothing. And then you got to talk about WTF mode. Wow, what an experience. We've seen it, we've seen clips, we've heard GM talk about it, but in all honesty, you will never appreciate it until you experience it in person. My first impression when Jim pushed down the accelerator pedal was that we had been rear-ended, because it was this violent acceleration from a stop. The thing just kicked forward as if a vehicle had hit us from the back, or this massive creature had kicked our rear tailgate, propelling us forward, and then it just kept on accelerating. Before we knew it, we were going not only 60 miles an hour in 3.5 seconds, but then 70 and 80 and climbing from there. It really was a lot of fun. It put a huge smile on my face. And I can imagine there's going to be a lot of new Hummer EV owners who can't wait to show that feature to their friends. Crab walking and four-wheel steering, like I mentioned, are really, really unique features. Crab walk, yeah, it's going to be a party trick that you're going to show to your friends in your driveway or going down the road, but off-road on a trail when you're pinned up against a tree or you're in a tricky situation, it's going to come in really useful. And just the four-wheel steering by itself will allow you to maneuver in places and positions that you wouldn't even dream of had you been in a full-size or even a mid-size truck. It genuinely felt more maneuverable than even a Colorado ZR2. So with all that said, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun being there and being inside of it to film it. And I've got to thank GMC and their crew for inviting me out to Milford to be one of those first people in the Hummer EV. It was an incredible experience, and it's only made me more excited to get behind the wheel again. If you've really enjoyed this, please take a moment to subscribe. Head on over to gm-trucks.com and read my written full first drive review. We've got some more pictures over there that weren't included in this video. And stay tuned. We should be getting our own Hummer in the next few months, and GMC has promised me more time behind the wheel in the near future. So I'm Zane from gm-trucks.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.